for your presence itself reflects that you all are very earnest and sincere about this POSH Act. Having this workshop at a time when we are seeing the alarming rise of crime against women and the girl child, even the recent incident has shocked us all to the core and our conscience has been hurt. It is about time we all rise up to the occasion and see to it that the present legal framework are implemented in the right perspectives. And for that we have some of the most remarkable advocates and leaders who have been advocating the issue for the safety and security of women and who have been committing their life for the safety and security and protections of women are here to act as resource persons for today. So we are very grateful for their presence as well. While the Act provides a very strong legal framework to ensure safe and dignified workplaces for women, its true effectiveness will only depend on how well we understand and implement at all levels of society.
For decades, women organizations and individuals advocating for women's rights have been trying to get legislation that can protect women's rights enshrined in the Indian constitutions. In today's and our patriarchal society like India, women's rights needs a special protections. Therefore, to protect women's rights, various laws have been passed. One such piece of legislation is the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. And this legislation was introduced to protect women from the menace of sexual harassment at the workplace. The National Commission for Women plays a key role in the implementation and oversight of India's sexual harassment of women at workplace, POSH Act 2013. The National Commission for Women advocates for the Act's awareness, organized public hearings and issues guidelines for state commissions to monitor the establishment and functioning of internal complaint committees, which we all call it as ICCs, and local complaint committee, LCCs, across the country. And in compliance to the directives of National Commission for Women, today, the Nagaland State Commission for Women, we are having this one-day state-level workshop on the sexual harassment of women at workplace, POSH Act 2013, for the sensitization of departments, internal complaint committee and local complaint committee members. And I welcome all the internal complaint committee members and the local committee who are here today. When we look back into the brief history of workplace sexual harassment, the Phanwari Devi gang rape case that occurred in 1992 can be called the juncture from which the demand for the legislation of workplace harassment began. Phanwari Devi was working under the Haryana Government in the Women and Child Development Department as a social worker. She was engaged in preventing child marriage when she was gang raped by people from the dominant and affluent Gujarat community. Thereafter, the occurrence of received extensive coverage by the media when the accused were acquitted by the lower court. So in response to this episode in 1997, certain non-governmental organizations filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court to protect the fundamental rights of women under Article 14, 19 and 21. And this petition specifically addressed the issues of sexual harassment of women in the workplace. The Supreme Court, noticing the absence of domestic law on this matter, issues the Vishaka guideline to fill the vacuum until legislation on the subject until it was enacted. When we talk about this POSH Act in details, during the technical session, our resource persons will be speaking in details on that. The Sexual Harassment at Workplace, POSH Act, this Act 2013 is a landmark legislation that provides a comprehensive framework for addressing sexual harassment as any unwelcome act or behavior of a sexual nature, whether verbal, physical, or visual. The Bosch Act 2013 has been enacted to protect women and safeguard her rights at workplace. The Act and rules framed hereto have put on the employer to constitute internal complaint committee and on the district officer to constitute local complaint committee to address such complaints. The Act itself, Bosch Act 2013 itself, mandates employers to prevent sexual harassment and to address complaints through the internal complaint committee for workplaces with 10 or more employees, with the local complaint committee for other cases. The ICCs and LCCs are mandatorily directed by the Supreme Court to attend meetings and trainings to ensure the committees are established and worked effectively to create a safe environment for women. When we look onto the prevalence of workplace harassment, a distinction has been made between sexual harassment and sex-based harassment. It stresses the fact that sexual harassment does not always mean sexual desire. It can also be here to exert the power of one sex over the other. Such behavior and action takes a toll on a woman's emotional health, hampering her personal and professional growth. As per various studies, in the low number of women's workforce, a significant number of women have faced sexual harassment and a huge number of complaints are not even reported. Especially when we look into our Nagaland context, the closely associated and needed society and the culture of silence that has been promoted in girls' education in our family has conditioned the women to silently be the victim of the patriarchal onslaught, which is why many cases are not reported. And also, an unequal power dynamics that are created because of the hierarchical structure of the workplace, when added to the gender dynamics of a patriarchal society, causes the women who is in lower in rank in this hierarchical culture suffers as she is meant to choose between filing a complaint or keeping her job. The most anticipated result of filing a complaint against the perpetrator is either losing the job or similar consequences. It does not limit here. The woman herself is blamed for the act of sexual harassment of which she has been a victim if she does not comply or does not go by the societal gender norms in our society. Another factor is stigma and discrimination taken to the women. For instance, like women going out late at night or wearing short dresses or attending parties is seen as outside our society, our societal gender norms, which women are always blamed and discriminated and harassed in our society. So these many reasons compel the legislature to make laws to foster a safe work environment for women. The Bosch Act 2013 is a significant step forward in the fight against sexual harassment in the workplace. It provides a clear and comprehensive framework for addressing sexual harassment, and it offers a number of safeguards for victims. The Act is valuable tool for creating workplaces that are free from sexual harassment. And also this regulation is effective in reducing the workload of the judiciary as well, and in providing speedy justice to aggrieved women, which will eventually give female employees confidence that they are protected and will discourage more such acts of harassment. As per the Supreme Court of India, a survey conducted revealed that many state government departments have not constituted an internal complaint committee, Additionally, where ICC have been formed, but the number of the members is not as per the POSH Act or lacks the mandatory external members. So today, I want to urge and request all the head of departments, the government departments, the private sectors to strictly adhere to the Supreme Court directives in constituting internal complaint committee and legal complaint committee members, and that besides setting and implementing strict guidelines for accomplishing the objectives of the POSH Act, let's put a high demand to introduce programs related to gender sensitization at all levels of education and at workplace. I also want to say that a half-heartedly implemented legislation won't help women to get the equal status provided under Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. The endless struggle of women groups and individuals has no doubt helped in preparing legislation, which does give confidence to many working women about their safety. The Act provides comprehensive provision for having the main objectives, but the problems are the non-implementation of these provisions. So, today I want to mention that the solutions of these problems is not only to make stringent rules, but to implement it actively and strongly that will not warrant such legislation in the future. Lastly but not the least, intimidations, harassment, and violence have no place in democracy. It is important that we start conversations about changing the culture of sexual harassment and discrimination in politics, state capitals, and our larger communities, with an acknowledgement of the courage of so many women who have chosen to speak up and speak out in the workplace and in the outside the workplace. So I want to end my keynote address with these two quotes. Celeste Ng says, if you see harassment happening, speak up. Being harassed is terrible. Having bystanders pretend they did not notice is infinitely worse. And also, Tony Way states, sexual harassment and gender discrimination is real. It is far more pervasive than people have been willing to acknowledge. With this, I end my speech. May God bless us all. Pleasant hour.
We will be today dealing with the POSH Act from different perspectives. Mainly, we'll be focusing on 7 points. So I would just like to give a brief mention of how we are going to approach this workshop. Low awareness and misconceptions. Like my madam have already said, I just want to reiterate a little bit on this. Nagalands still remain unaware or only vaguely familiar with the provisions of the POSH Act. Now, this lack of understanding leads to non-compliance and underreporting of harassment cases, though it is happening within the workspace, whether it's formal or informal, organized or unorganized sectors. So likewise, this workshop is therefore very essential to educate all stakeholders about their rights, duties, and the mechanism for redressals. And we have all been very aware of what is now daily happening in our society. With the changing time, we are facing more crimes of women, whether it's workplace crimes or harassment, or whether it's to do with sexual molestations, murder, and other kinds of brutality committed upon women. And like we have said, social stigma is a very strong factor which we are not able to break as yet. And that is why underreporting is always there. Moreover, our society is so deeply rooted in our cultural and traditional practices that for family owner, most of the time, sexual harassment and sexual exploitations go unreported. So, on another level, today we want to see and discuss on breaking the culture of silence and to make people understand that seeking justice is not shameful, but an assertion of dignity and rights for women. We will also be talking on ensuring compliance across sectors, whether informal or formal. And that is why we have people from NGO who will be briefing us on the importance of having this POSH Act in place, even in the unorganized sector for the marginalized women as well as for distressed women, apart from workplaces. Changing workplace mindsets. So this will also be one factor we'll be discussing. Protecting women in emerging workplaces, that is another. Encouraging institutional accountability. And lastly, promoting a culture of respect and safety. So from this 7 perspective, we will be going ahead with the workshops later on.
It is a privilege to stand before you at this one-day workshop on the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2003. Today's gathering is more than a formal event. It is a collective reaffirmation of our shared responsibility to ensure that every woman in the workplace has the right to work in an environment that upholds dignity, equality, and respect. The foundation of this act is rooted in the landmark Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan judgment that happened in 1997, in which the Honorable Supreme Court of India stated that gender equality includes protection from sexual harassment and the right to work with dignity. This historic declaration paved the way for a legal framework that protects women from harassment and ensures that their workplaces are safe and just. The POSH Act 2013, therefore, stands as a crucial piece of legislation that not only defines sexual harassment, but also outlines preventive measures, reporting systems, and time-bound mechanism for redressal. The Act makes it clear that a safe working environment is not a courtesy. It is a legal right, and ensuring it is a legal obligation for every employer, even every organizations, and every supervisory authority. This workshop serves as an important platform to strengthen our awareness and understanding of the POSH Act. The sessions today will offer valuable insights into both preventive and redressal mechanisms, equipping us to deal with complaints in a fair, sensitive, and timely manner. They will further highlight the importance of maintaining an atmosphere where employees, especially women, feel secure, respected, and heard. The Act mandates the creation of internal complaints committee in every workplace with more than 10 employees. The ICC is not just a mandatory body on paper, but the very backbone of the redressal mechanism under the Act. The effectiveness of an ICC depends on its sensitivity, impartiality, and committed to the due process. However, addressing sexual harassment is not the responsibility of the ICC alone. Employers, supervisors, and colleagues each have a role. Whether in preventing harassment, supporting affected individuals for speaking up against unacceptable behaviors. A culture of zero tolerance can only be achieved when silence is replaced with awareness and hesitation with accountability. While laws and committees form the structural backbone, culture forms the heart of real change. A truly safe workplace must grow from daily practice, from mutual respect, gender sensitivity, the clarity of behavior, and that is why sensitization is not one-day exercise. It must be continuous, intentional, and institutionally supported. When organizations respond with prompt action, confidentiality, and compassion, they not only ensure justice, but also build trust. Trust in systems, trust in leadership, and trust in the workplace itself. On behalf of the Department of Social Welfare, I extend my sincere appreciation to all our resource persons for their willingness to share their expertise, and to all the participants from various departments for attending and engaging in this workshop. Your presence here sends a powerful message that together we are committed to building workplaces that reject harassment in any form and embrace equality in every form. Let this workshop be a positive step towards strengthening organizational commitment to gender equality, safety, and inclusivity in the workplace. Values enshrined in the POSH Act 2013 and central to the vision of a just society. Before I conclude, I will leave you with a reminder. A safe workplace is not created by laws alone, but by people who choose to uphold those laws with integrity and empathy. Let us move forward from today, not just with information, but with conviction, to act, to advocate, and to ensure that every employee, especially every woman, can work with dignity, confidence, and security. Thank you, and I wish you all a meaningful and enriching workshop.
Well, the topic is definitely really relevant and to this situation. The sexual harassment in the workplace, in the Prevention, Prohibitions and Retracement Act of 2013. This act is colloquially known as PUSH Act. It is a strong framework to ensure workplace safety against women's harassment, especially women's harassment. And it's another empowerment of the women who should take full advantage of such an act so that unnecessary, unconscious harassment is prevented and not encouraged as well. As you know, this act is more of a preventive in nature, so that women are protected from the evil eye of the opposite sex. But of course, the fear sex should not provoke them as well. Because after all, God has created both men and women to coexist with each other, to love and care for each other. one can see that it is natural that both seek each other's company and attracted to each other, especially when you are young and beautiful. Of course, just because one is physically attractive and charming, that doesn't allow the liberty, to harass the person you are attracted to. But human being is such a strange animal that against social expectation, self-control and discipline are not maintained by some of the people, and they start misbehaving, especially when the person who is attracted is docile and not very brief. In a civilized society, one is expected to behave decently through self-control, disciplined behaviors, but that's not always the case. And such misbehaviors, even in a civilized society and civilized culture, do happen. Even in the Bible, as you all know, the extreme side of the self-discipline is the incident of Joseph, who was tempted to indulge in unwanted relationship, but he had resisted very strongly. There was consequences. On the other side, the extreme side is that even the prince and princess, David's son has taken advantage of his beautiful sisters, and he had really molested his own sister, sending her to the shame of the society then. So such animal instinctive behavior is shown even in the Bible. So therefore, especially in the workplace, such behaviors can do happen unless the person who is indulging that discipline, the person who is likely to be the victim, are not brave enough to come out openly against such unwanted harassment. Because of that, such a strong legal framework has been worked out to ensure safety, mainly of women, against sexual harassment. It is in the penalty and the punishment inflicted under the Act that holds weight in bringing about a compliance and creating accountability within an organization. Strict enforcement of this PUSH Act thereby not only aid the safeguarding of victims against harassment, but also relieve wrongful conduct by ensuring that employees fulfill their roles. The Act emphasizes on formation of Internal Complaints Committee, as we all know, ICC, to attend to complaint promptly of any sexual harassment to ensure safety, dignity, productivity of individual, especially the women folk. To ensure compliance, penalty is imposed ranging from maximum of ₹50,000 fine, depending on the nature and the seriousness of the harassment, and of course, any frivolous complaint from the women's side also can be penalized. Apart from imposing fine, other measures of penalty can be written warning, if it's really not very serious, suspension from service, dismissal from even employment in serious cases. That can happen. So therefore, the women folks is empowered under this Act also to come strongly that if such advances are made, it is not come by you or unwanted. If the harassment amounts to molestation or stalking or assault, criminal complaint can also be lodged under the law, earlier IPC, CRPC, in the Evidence Act, but now it is under new act, Naya Sanhita, Nagarik Suraksha Sahita, and Shikshaya Aditya. I hope I pronounced correctly. I took it in Canada, but anyway, from the earlier act has been changed by the new act, which is more of a dynamic kind of a change of act. So therefore, you can take full advantage of that and also act according to the seriousness of such harassment. In order to ensure deterrent from harassment to protect their reputation, employee morale, embarrassment or shame, the organization is expected to take prompt and stern action against wrongdoing and misbehavior, which is the main purpose of this act. Any company, any department who is in the most influence atmosphere, this thing happens. Definitely, I think this thing has to be strongly enforced, especially in the workplaces where both men and women are working in close proximity. One should not fear the other person. They should work in complete harmony, understanding, so that everybody relax and also contribute its best. And that is the main objective of this act. Therefore, if especially the women's folk are not really coming forward for any such sort of misbehaviors or such harassment, I think we should be partly responsible. Therefore, I think I urge the women's folk especially to come out very boldly that any complaint of such harassment, so that at least these things are promptly attended to. Because for not implementing this act properly, challenges is like underreporting, or many cases are unreported due to fear of retaliation, stigma, or lack of awareness. So that demands that especially the women folk should be prompt enough, bold enough, and should come out with such complaints. And also, it is necessary under Bharata, like today's workshop, that awareness is created, and not only the special representative like few of you here, but also to all the workers, because here the participants will be responsible to ensure their rights and duties, and also create awareness of the provision of this act. Of course, in the second session, you will be discussing more in detail, so I will not go much into this. And some of the company also, or organization, may not comply with the act. Your government or ICC may not function effectively, in which case your complaint may not be attended to promptly, in which case the complainant also is required to be very persistent and also strong on this issue. Culture or social barrier can be deep-rooted, so patriarchal attitude and also the men folk dominant over the ladies, the girls, it be a reason where such harassment is also encouraged. So therefore, all this dynamic should be looked into by the organization and also ICC, and look into such complaint promptly. One of the important things would be that awareness, as I said earlier also, that awareness is to be created, especially on the girls and the women's folk, so that at least the men folk will take advantage of the vulnerability of the women's. Definitely this act empowered the women to speak out very boldly, openly. Therefore, I pull upon this participant here today, since you are representing the organization as well as all the most important department, that you should not feel shy, or you should not rest in propagating and also in creating awareness among the workers. So with these few words, I think my presence here is really complete. Thank you so much.
We have come a long way in every field, and we take pride in the fact that we are an enlightened and educated society. But still, there are so many more things to do. We don't know whether the legal provisions are at all effective, no matter how much we try to create so much awareness. So we appeal to all policymakers, implementers of these policies, leaders, as well as our political leaders and our law enforcement agencies, to make use of all available resources to protect our women as well as to bring justice to our women, to our daughters, our sisters, and our wives. And we feel it is about time that none of us should be subjected to such brutality. Shall we all rise up to our feet and observe a minute of silence for our daughter, Vibhujana. Thank you.